So it looks like we have a few more people that are still jumping in. No big deal. As you're coming in, you're going to notice that we are recording, and that's so that we can repost this in the ASIS Connects community page on for ASIS International. So if you aren't a member, please consider being a member. We talk a lot about investigations and things like this. Lots of people post in the Connects page their questions about their investigations, if they have investigative challenges, as well as training opportunities like this. So without wasting any more of your valuable time this morning, let's just jump into it, Sandra. And like I said, this is a workshop, and we're going to talk about corporate due diligence. And I think I have controls here, Sandra. Let me.
Yes, it says up at the top, it says waiting for Scott Walker to take control of your screen.
Oh,
So you
awesome.
should be able to do your stuff.
I can. Oh, there we go. All right. Like I said, whoops. Like I said, it is a collaborative. Let's see if I can go. Yeah, the controls aren't working. I'll let
At
you
the
just.
bottom of the screen, put your cursor down at the bottom and then just go forward. There you go.
Okay. Thanks. It's a little laggy, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
So follow along. It's a workshop. We want you to play along here. Okay, so if you don't have the ability to unmute yourself, just throw it in the chat. But what do you all think corporate due diligence
Oops, sorry.
investigation means? So what is it that we're going to be talking about today? And we've got a number of things like using the information to protect yourself or your company from potential fraud, insider threat, embezzlement. Yeah, somebody just posted fraud. That's awesome. How about pre-employment backgrounds for C-suite board members? Mergers and acquisitions, identify acquisition targets, competitive intelligence. Yeah, somebody said all the above. Yep. Yeah, good. And that's really what it is in my estimation as well, is that everything in the answer section is what we would use the term corporate due diligence for. So it's a kind of a broad term, but Sandra and I have kind of collaborated on this, and that's what we get the sense that as professional investigators, we've used corporate due diligence for in the past.
Mhm.
Let's see if I can go to the next slide.
I can do it for you if you want.
Thanks. It's just laggy on my side.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you just let me know when you want to move forward and I'll take care of it.
Awesome. Okay. And again, feel free to unmute yourself if you can, or put it in the chat. Why should we care about this? Why is this important? And so we want to hear your feedback too. But some of the things that I've experienced is where, if you work in a corporate setting, you're not a private investigator. Maybe private investigators have this experience as well, but as a corporate investigator, I've had this quite often where HR says, "Hey, something strange showed up in somebody's background. What does this mean? What is we're hiring truck drivers. What is a DUI? What does this DUI, criminal DUI mean? They don't necessarily understand the feedback that's coming from their background check vendor. What we do with corporate due diligence, though, I do want to say, is way more and way more in depth than a pre-employment background check. So you do need to be careful with how you use this as a tool, especially depending on what jurisdiction you're in. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of pre-employment background checks, but that there is a whole kind of different process that is really got some parameters legally around it. C-suite asking us to do some due diligence on a considering a new board member, right? And I've actually had that phrase, you were a cop, you can find some dirt on them. I've literally had somebody from the C-suite tell me that in the previous employment situation. So they're going to come and they're going to ask for you to use your resources, and you're an investigator, you can go find these things. And additionally, if you are in a publicly traded company and you're working in kind of a compliant or restricted area, maybe like even a financial services company, you have these requirements. You have to do due diligence on third-party vendors. You have to do due diligence when you're bringing in a contractor to do something. So there's a whole bunch of regulatory requirements for doing corporate due diligence as well. You can go next slide, Sandra.
Sure.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Sandra and I have been talking about open source information quite a lot lately. And the reason why you'll see that although we have a few paid databases we're going to talk about, the majority of these things that we're going to discuss is open source. And so you, depending on where you are around the world, probably have access to a lot of the data and the information that we're going to start working on here in just a second. So when we talk about a lot of this corporate due diligence stuff, sure, TLO, Scope Now, and some of the other paid databases that we're going to talk about, those are great, and you should absolutely use those if you have access to them. But what I have found, being a global investigator, is that not every international place on the face of the planet will allow you to use that paid database. For example, if you something like TLO, I have some operations in North America that in Canada, I can't use TLO to gain access to that information. So the reason why we talk a lot about open source is because, for the most part, depending on where you are in the world and depending on what you can get access to, open source is probably going to be one of your better ways to go into the world and do your due diligence. For example, if you're going to be hiring a new CEO, grab that LinkedIn, compare it to the CV. That's a good start. But what we look at when we're looking at people who are highly placed in companies, they have a background in potentially other publicly traded companies, we're going to go look at their 10Ks. I had a situation where a person was claiming that they were one position in a highly placed position in the company, and when we got a hold of their 10K, it didn't show that. And so, obviously, as investigators, we don't ever say people are lying, but we will say that that there was inconsistencies here. So that's important for us to kind of point out. As well as industry periodicals. A lot of the open source and the open source due diligence that we're doing will touch that, and we'll tell you how to find those things, because that's not just going to come out in a Google search. By the way, and Sandra, I don't mean to steal your thunder, Google searches are great ways to start. Absolutely, totally a viable place to start getting your open source intelligence.
Well, what you're saying right there is we're going to talk about that and how we can utilize open search engines like Google and Bing and all of that. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to use them in ways that you're actually going to get more out of it than you ever anticipated. So really a key factor using these types of sources. I mean, free things, but yeah, it's really important that we're utilizing the open sources like Alfie use that you said. This may be our only option in the future. Scott and I have talked about this. We may have no other option because, first of all, AI is all taking over, but all of the privacy that has hit everywhere. I'm a licensed investigator in California, even though I work internationally. And I tell you what, the lockdowns and truncating of information, making it so difficult for me to identify if they're my subject. So there's so many things, but I'm glad you brought up the basics of just doing Google and Bing searches. It's really important.
Yep. Yeah. And the reason why we do these things is because government information is not always as reliable. I know, shocker. And if there's any government employees like me, I'm a recovering former federal agent. And, the information that they even put out online could be inaccurate. Believe it or not, we found that. I found that both in California and in Arizona, where I live, and I'm licensed to be a private investigator, that the information is not always as accurate as it could be. So taking out social media, I had a situation where an engineer who worked remotely, and this was pre-COVID, he worked for us, the company I worked for, and he worked for our competitor. Neither the competitor or our company knew that until somebody saw something on social media. And they brought it up. Hey, that's weird. Why is he at a event for our competitor? And so, just reaching out and looking at those things is really important. Um,
Before we move on from this, I want to just interject because from your point of view, because you are in the corporate world, you're a corporate investigator. And I am a consultant because I am a private investigator that works independently outside of the corporations. And I get hired by corporations as an independent investigator. So there's a whole other perspective of where I'm coming from, because there's a methodology when you're a corporate investigator, the things that you follow, the rules that you stay within, and a lot of other things that you have to focus on. But in my world, sometimes the reason they come to me is because outside of the restrictions, and a lot of times I'm doing corporate due diligence investigations, and when I'm doing them, they give me the resume, guess what, or the CV. I'm not looking at that. The only thing I'm looking at is the name, the phone number, email address, and address. Can you use that to verify my person? I don't care what's on that, because what I'm looking for is the ugliness, the other identity, the nefarious activity they're hiding, developing their target websites, their identities that you would never know about. And that's why I'm getting hired. So there's actually two layers here of the usual corporate due diligence investigation from the person that they have working directly for them, and then going to the outside and hiring someone like me that actually digs everything that doesn't exist and finding all the ugliness. And again, it's all through open source. So we're going to scratch the surface on some of these tools, right, Scott? We're going to give them some of the ones that we like to use, and hopefully from there, it'll lead them to doing some of their own research on their own.
Yeah, no, that's great, Sandra, and thanks for nailing down, why are we doing these things? Why do we care? And I've seen situations like our last bullet point where they want to hire a new sales leader who's from Iran, but are they on a sanctions parties list? Are they a denied person? Or are they specially designated national? What do all those things mean? Basically, without getting too deep into the weeds on sanctioned parties, but some governments internationally will ban certain folks and companies from doing business in certain parts of the world. So if you're in a global company like Sandra and I support and are in, we want to know that so that we don't bring in somebody to the company who can't do work in certain parts of the world.
Or if they're a mole. That's the other thing we're looking
yeah.
for. Somebody that might be coming in to steal your information and cause, horrible corporate espionage. So that's right. Another piece.
Yeah, great point. Counterintelligence purposes. You can go to the next slide. So we talk a lot about OSINT tools, like we've been saying. And the way I always start, and if we're talking about doing corporate due diligence on a company, and even on a person, we can use these things for. But I'm appreciative of the Secretary of State's database throughout the United States. And I'll even say that I think there's one in the UK that is the equivalent to their Secretary of State. But anywhere you register a business is a great place to start looking. Rather than trying to go state by state or country by country, Sandra and I use open source tools like Corporate Wiki or Open Corporates as a starting point. And remember, none of these searches or none of these tools that we're going to talk about are kind of that silver bullet, the magic key that can unlock all the information. You're going to get bits and pieces throughout as you develop the scope of your investigation. So hopefully these tools will help you do that and try and find little bits here and there, because certain countries or certain jurisdictions will report some information, some will report no information. The state of California, for example, provides a lot of really good information. It's a very extensive Secretary of State database that even includes things like signatures, which is important, especially if you're looking to try and figure out if somebody is creating shell companies. You want to make sure that's the same signature on every document. Same thing with they'll actually provide an address for where the business is registered. There are exceptions, and I have in here Delaware is an exception. Delaware just has more privacy around its corporations. Every major corporation is incorporated in Delaware for that reason. You need a court order to get information about who's registered to the business as a managing director, if you will, or an operations person, or somebody who's on the articles of an organization. All those things are important for us to understand, especially when we're dealing with companies that we are going to do business with, or we are looking to acquire. Who are all the principals that might be involved in this business? And we want to uncover those things and identify those people who might be involved, as well as, if you've worked with your finance partners, their procurement teams, sometimes they get a weird company requesting an invoice. And they're like, we've never heard of this company. We don't know who it is. And maybe you run it out, you find out that a company employee is on the articles of organization, because they've started the company themselves and now they're committing fraud with it. So,
God, I wanted to let them know that I actually put 2 domains in the chat for corporationwiki.com, opencorporates.com. Those are the actual domains for the 2 that he was mentioning. It used to actually be corporatewiki.com, but they changed it to corporation wiki. So I just wanted to let you know. So you guys, you can copy those domains or just take note of them.
And my favorite out of kind of these top ones is Open Corporates. I think it's really easy to use, and it's international. And I've found companies in New Zealand, all over the world, the UK, Europe, Africa. So definitely very, very broad. And it doesn't give you all the information that you could ever want, but it does give you a lead to, hey, where else can I look? So consider that. Dun & Bradstreet is a resource as well. If somebody is has registered their business with DMB, they generally have to give a lot of information. And you can look up, companies I've been associated with who are registered with DMB. So same thing with OpenGov. If they're a government contractor or they are registered to be a government contractor, you got to give them a lot of information. So at least the U.S. government, and I believe that's what OpenGov covers, only U.S. government contractors, you can find more information there, as well as the Panama Papers. There's a number of leaked websites that kind of host all that information that has been leaked through. I don't even need to go into all the hacks that have happened. But
going off of ICIJ, they have more than just Panama Papers too, right? They have a lot of leaked information. I've actually on some connections with, again, feeding off of what Scott was talking about earlier, when you have these officers that have their hands dipped into other places and you're not aware of it. I actually was able to do a connection of people on other things and connecting people in a different company when they weren't supposed to be working. It was definitely, completely against what they should have been doing for their business, but they'll actually give you a little link analysis where you have the names and then they're connected to a business and those names are connected to someone else. The US based one here, Corporation Wiki, is I believe US based. They also have that little network analysis that shows you those connections, but we were getting questions on which ones were international. Open Corporates is international, just like ICIJ. And I believe Dun & Brad has an international reach as well. But Open Corporates is the most interesting one because you can do the drop-down list and see all the countries it includes. But I'm going to reiterate what Scott was talking about earlier. Not all to find record by searching the officer, because on Open Corporates, you have the option of searching for a business name or a person's name. If you search corporate names, I will just do it internationally and see if I actually get another filing for the same company in a different country and find the same officers. But if I run an officer search, not always will you find anything, because not always are countries or states showing the officers. So just a little tip. Now somebody's asking me here, Scott, does Open Corporates cover LEIs? I don't know what that acronym means. Do you?
I forget what it stands for. It's a legal entity, like incorporation, I believe. Do I have that?
It does.
Right?
It does LLCs and corporations.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
LPs, LLC, and corporations.
yeah. And if
I'm
we don't
hoping
have
that answers the
LEIs,
question.
correct, let us know. But yeah, it should capture everything that any legal entity is what we're
Yeah,
looking for.
it doesn't capture like DBAs or fictitious business names, small businesses that are filed
Not
like in
all
the
these things.
US, they're filed in a county. But if it's a state or a country thing, yeah, it covers all of that, right?
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
And to that point, with what Sandra was saying, this is why when we're looking for this information, it could give us addresses. Sandra and I were just talking about one that they registered a business to home addresses. So isn't that great? And by the way, if you have a company, you might want to take a look at your Secretary of State and corporation documents and make sure that your home address is not on them, right? You don't want people knowing where you physically live. That's not a good idea. Another way to find that out, if you're interested, is to just open Google Maps, look at your neighborhood. You'll find that there's all kinds of businesses at people's homes that they've registered with Google Maps because they want the ad revenue, or they want the advertisements there, as well as branch offices. So certain jurisdictions will report this, and I think that's always good to see where people are doing business or trying to do business. We can go next slide. So other additional OSINT tools or additional things to think about is licensed professionals. So there's a lot of people that are licensed. And again, if you're looking for, who are they, what are they doing, and what else are they doing? If you have a business that involves building contractors, wouldn't you want to know that the new salesperson that you just hired is or isn't a licensed contractor? Are they working on the side? Do they have a side hustle going that might be a conflict of interest and violate your employee codes of ethics, right? Because we're not just looking for criminality. Sure, that's great, and we should be, but we're also looking for those violation of codes of ethics. So professional licensing tools can help with that. And that is very broad, and it's very similar to looking for business information. Somebody who's a doctor may be a party to a lawsuit, or may have been sanctioned by their professional association. So looking across the spectrum is really important. Same thing with attorneys. Attorneys have to belong to a state bar, and that state bar will put out the information if they have been sanctioned by their state bar or unlicensed for any reason. And so let's jump into, this is kind of a more global sense, but sanctioned parties lists, and why do they exist? Basically, one country or a group of countries gets together and says, we don't want that company or that person to do business anymore. Think about the movie Lord of War with Nick Cage back, I don't know, the early 2000s, based on a true story. Really good movie. But he had he was barred from doing business in a number of countries. And he even had an Interpol red notice out for his arrest. And a red notice is basically from Interpol or Europol saying, hey, country, if this person crosses your border, comes into a port of entry, a POE, detain them for us.
Oh, no.
It's kind of like a warrant. I don't think it has all the legal parameters of a warrant, but and countries can choose to ignore it if they want, if they're so able to. But there's a number of places that we should be going. We should be looking. I think every single one on this list, and again, you're going to get a copy of this PowerPoint, and we're recording, so you can watch it later. But take a look at all these. There is no really good way to just kind of broadly search everything here. Unfortunately, you have to kind of go by bits and pieces. And again, these are all very Western nations. I'd love to build a database if you're part of ASIS investigations community and are on Connects. Hey, if you want to put that information into our Connects, and so we can build a database, that'd be great. But I'd love to see much more broad database. I mean, we cover Canada, the UK, Europe, United Nations, and the United States. So that's great, but that's not all of the world. So I know there's other lists out there, and if I've missed something, let us know. And because I think we have a global audience, I'll say this too. I'm a dumb American. I speak two languages, English and bad English. So it's harder for me. That's why I appreciate people like Sandra. I'm a member of an international private investigations community called World Association of Detectives. But get out there, find the international stuff. And if you don't know, or if you suspect somebody's doing something in a place you don't speak the language, you won't be able to read the language. You won't be able to go on the website in Taiwan, let's say, and read about a sanctioned party situation. So use your resources, use Google Translate. But I'm a big fan of, that's why I belong to associations, so that I can reach out to folks who are better than me and can speak more languages, because I guarantee you there's more than just what I put on this list. We can go to the next slide, Cindy.
Okay, there we go.
I'll just, it hasn't switched for me.
It hasn't?
No.
Huh.
Let me see if I can do it too. Oh, there we
We're
go.
on, we're talking, did it come through?
Yeah, we're good. So
Okay.
I'm not going to go too deep into this, but this is in addition to those sanctioned parties, a list of people who've been banned from banking. Basically, if you're in an international company, would you want to hire somebody who is on one of these lists in a financial position? Somebody's got some financial responsibility for your company? Probably not. So go through, check these things out. Open sanctions is another one I just found that's great for finding out if somebody's been sanctioned. And I think it's really about leaked data, but they go pretty broadly and look at other sanctioned parties lists. We can go next slide.
Okay, I just put one link into the chat. That's
OFAC.
instantofac.com. That's yeah, it's basically looking at the watch list for the Office of Foreign Asset. So
Yep.
okay, let me get you to the next slide. Hopefully it moves for you. I don't know if it's moving for you. Did it move?
Yeah, we're good.
All
So
right.
and this is where we start to jump into the demo, and I'll let you get set to show that, Sandra. But Sandra and I kind of combined a couple of really high level things. This is definitely not an all-inclusive list, but we want you to use paid databases and then measure that with what you're finding in the open source in those free databases. Both Sandra and I are big fans of using Yandex, TinEye, and Google Image when we're doing image searches. But Sandra also uses PimEyes. We're going to do that on the next slide. But what Sandra is showing you here is an open source paid tool that we use called Scope Now, and we can use it to do, and she's doing a search for herself, but you can use it to search businesses as well. So if we wanted to search Sandra's business, Camelot Investigations, we could do that with this tool. And it is very extensive. I'm incredibly impressed. And if you're going to be at next week, the GSX in Dallas, Texas, the big conference for ASIS International, they are going to be there. They're going to have a booth. I suggest you stop by. They've got some great information in there. So why don't you just take us
And
through?
I'm also going to be inviting them up when I'm doing my presentation on Monday at 11:15 on Become Stealth Online. They are going to be invited to come and, do what they did last year and tell you 2-3 minutes what exactly they do. So you can meet them at my session as well as their booth.
Yeah. So you want to take us through what you're doing? I mean, this is easy to understand, search parameters. This is a business tab that she has open now. And yeah, good. Throw Camelot in there. And there's a number of things you can search. You don't have to fill out everything. You can search little bits of information that you have, but big fan of, I think the reason, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too, Sandra, but my thought with Scope Now and using it is it's a huge time saver. It's a great place to start. And again, databases are garbage in, garbage out. So be careful with what you're looking at. But I think it's a big time saver. What's your thoughts on Scope Now?
Yeah, for me, because I do so much deep dive in social media, I do a lot of that work. What I think about their system is what Rob Douglas has done is taken it to a level with all of the filters and its capabilities. I am able to use it to verify that I've covered everything that I needed to cover if I'm doing it on my own. Then again, I'm in situations where I have somebody that's got a really common name, but I do possibly have an email address that I'm starting with or a username. With that, I will start here first, so they'll narrow out and weed out the garbage I don't want. So I'm letting this run right now. Let's see how it did on the business. It's still working on the business, but what it's doing is, you see this list right here. It's looking at all of these things and it's pulling from all of these places. I can even ask it to grab information with metadata in it. But down here, you're going to see how it gives my name, my age, an address. And no, we're going to pretend that age isn't real, even though it is. It does a very good job on that. It is actually pulling from TLO, and that's the pay database that actually people have been asking about it. And somebody else commented on their address search being great, which I really agree with. It's a very open database, but what it does, it's US based for people, and you can do an actual people search by any kind of information. You could do it by an address, by their name and age, city, and it will pull all the records it hits on the information you've put in. And it's drawing originally from credit reporting agencies for their credit headers and all the address history. But then if there are more socials on their name, more dates of birth, you'll get them all. You learn bankruptcies, liens, judgments. It'll give you property ownership records in the US, give you vehicles depending on the state. It'll give you driver's license information depending on the state. Gives you so much information all compiled in one place. That is TLO, and it is a pay database. They have to vet you to be on it. Scope now, on the people information, they pull that from TLO, but then what they do is they find so much more. Their platform spiders out, and their algorithms are so extraordinary. I'm just scrolling to let you see what kind of information they've pulled on me, but I really want to get down lower here if I can. It's frozen for some reason. Hold on a sec. Let's see. I don't know why it froze on me, but if it doesn't let me go further, I'm going to go over here to see the business one and see it pulled Camelot Investigations. That is another company. That is not me. So this actually is not accurate, even though I put in Encino, California. Let's see if it got my business information. There I am. So they're pulling from Oprah Corporates. It is the exact same company name as mine. They're in Georgia and I'm in California. I've been around longer than them, I believe. Let's just see if they got, and that's the owner of the company in Georgia. So we're not getting all information that's right, but this is my LinkedIn page, and it should show you a picture of it. That doesn't look like my page.
No, it doesn't look like it.
Doesn't. Let's go back to me. See, for some reason, oh, there we go. It's letting me scroll now. I'm going to make this full size for a sec. And I don't know if people can see it. I'm trying to get through it. There we go. It's scrolling for me now. Let me pull it over here so you can see it more. Now it's working. These are family members of mine, yes, except for this guy. That's very accurate information. You can see me scrolling now. Is that right?
We're good.
Oh, I need to let this person in. All right. And then when we get past it, this is dark web information, right? Dark web information saying all the breaches. And I know I'm going fast, but I'm trying to get to some of that web page stuff, web articles. There are web articles. There's my website. There is my other website. You see where it gets, and I was a part of them. There's my something on Twitter mentioning me. This is very accurate information.
And
so
timely. This is a lot of this stuff is current.
Yeah, I'm going back up because it should have found my LinkedIn, but I noticed that it didn't pull my LinkedIn up here, and I'm not sure why, but normally it does. I did limit the results to basically just the top 80%, which limited it a lot. But you can see if I could have set the boundaries on this to, this is going to be my Twitter account probably. It's just having trouble with the connection, but you're going to see, don't you love that it's called X now? I know, I don't know if people are asking questions, Scott, in the chats, but once you've brought this up, see, that's my Twitter page. Once you have the report, though, you can go over here and export into a PDF or a Word document. So Scope Now is a really great product that can assist you in getting your work done faster, as Scott said. Now, I want to do something here. I got to go grab, whoops. I didn't stop the video, did I? I didn't
No,
stop
we're still
it, did
here.
I? I'm still recording. Okay, good.
It looks like you
Let me
just
just
closed
minimize
this.
this for a minute. I know I'm kind of going all over the place right now, but I'm
This
trying
is
to
live. This is
grab
how
the
we
pic.
do it.
Yeah, this is how I do it. It's live. I'm not doing anything that, okay, it's right there. I wanted to make sure it was right there. And yes, that's my dog, just so you guys know. He's my cutie pie. So I'm logged into my paid PimEyes account. All right. I'm going to upload
Oh,
a
we're not
photo.
doing that one yet.
Oh,
We're
we're
going
not?
there next.
All right. I'm going to leave that. Then I'm just going to go back to our PowerPoint presentation and go
Okay.
back to from current slide.
So the so what for me on anything database related is it's a time saver, and then be careful of the information, trusting it 100%. You know, everything that we look at, we've got to verify its authenticity, and we need to verify the origin of the information, right? If you're going to everything that we're collecting, we should treat it like it's real evidence, and we're going to testify to it in court, because yeah, heck, you might have to. So dark owl is another good tool that covers the dark web. What Sandra and I say about dark web is you're one click away from seeing something horrible or committing a crime. So utilize tools like dark owl that actually collate and scrape the dark web, so you don't have to go out there and see it, and it'll darken pictures or hash out pictures, so you don't see the really terrible things that might be on the dark web. And by the way, unless you're in law enforcement, if you're on the dark web and you do see something that is a crime, guess what you've just done? You've committed a crime. So just be careful when you're going on the dark web, and use dark owl, great tool. So let's go to the next slide, and then we'll go back to pim eyes. Okay, so if you've seen my Saturday post on LinkedIn, you probably already know the answer to this. And if you are using a screenshot tool, feel free to grab this screenshot right now if you can, and grab the picture of this person and try and run it through Yandex and TinEye and Google image search. DuckDuckGo doesn't really have a good Google image or a good image search, but Yandex and Google Image are some good ones to start with, or whatever other ones you want to do. But we're going to look for, where is this person's picture on the internet? And while you're doing that, if you find a link or you find the name of the website that she's on, not LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has already killed her profile. But why don't you go to PimEyes and show us this is a paid database that Sandra uses, and we did not practice this beforehand, so we don't know what we're going to get.
No, we're testing this live
Yeah.
on PimEyes, and PimEyes does facial recognition. So I'm dropping that in there.
And the reason why this is important, folks, is for all of us that have remote workers in the world. And if you've got a remote worker, and this is going to be very true with artificial intelligence, if you start hiring gig workers with AI and machine learning, this is great. Awesome returns. We've already got returns.
This is shocking to me.
Yeah,
Wow.
we did not practice this ahead of time, folks. So I'm really glad that something's coming through.
So can I tell them about the paid version on this?
Yeah,
So if you're running the free version, you can get to this point, all right? And you can see this. The problem is it won't let you see anything past this. I pay, I think, like $29.99, $30 a month. And keep in mind, this is international, because this is based on the internet, any image that it can compare. So it'll find similarities like this one here on the right, but this is matching up. Look at this. So we're going to click on this. We're going to see, now that I have the paid version, I can do this, open the website. It gives me a lot of other options, but we don't have a lot of time here. Just want to see where it found it. It's Ziba, whatever that is. I don't even know what that is. And it's saying it came from here. I don't know where it is. I'm just scrolling to see if we find that image here. I'm finding this interesting. It's not showing me a picture there. It could be there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't.
Ah, there it is. New professional headshots. So that this is an AI generated. Is that correct, Scott? That's what you were saying?
That's what I found. Yeah.
Let's try right here, because it does. Do you think this is the same? It is. Let me see if it's a different website. So somebody's using an AI developed image, right?
That's it.
Let's see what
As far
we
as we can
get.
tell. Oh, there, another animal hospital. Wonderful. By the way, this is something I did not find on my open source search. So this is the power of having actual, I'm guessing it's going to
So
be in the
yeah, I
bottom.
want to comment on this, that we're not finding the image. This
Yeah,
is
what's your
something that I
thoughts?
tell everybody all the time. Just because you're not finding it doesn't mean it's not there, or just because you're not finding it doesn't mean it wasn't there. So whenever you get a hit on something, whether you're doing a search engine search or you're doing something like this, it could be that it picked up on a cached version and it's no longer on the live page. See, it picked it up here. It's been removed, and it may be because of Scott's post. So I'm just mentioning that, but is that not cool? We did this live and we didn't know this was going to happen. So I'll leave it at that and hand it back over to you, Scott.
And like what Sandra's saying, this is why we check multiple databases. You can throw the PowerPoint back up there. This is
Yeah,
why
I'm
you
just
check
going to get rid of
multiple
these tabs.
databases.
Let's
Leverage
see.
your paid against your open source. We're double checking and triple checking information all the time when we run stuff out, because you just don't know what you're going to find. You can go next slide.
Okay.
Another great tool here is Spy Dialer. I'll just jump right into Spy Dialer because I know we're going to talk a little bit more about Google Dorking. Each of these is a great database to use, but if you have your laptop open, your computer open, or even your phone, you can do this this lookup on this phone number, this 623-935-3822. And tell me, in the chat, throw in there what you find. Who is that associated with? While I talk about these kind of why Spy Dialer and what does that do? First of all, it's open source. It's free. It doesn't associate with you, and it has two really good features that I like. And again, it's scraping publicly available databases, but it's an aggregator, so it saves us time and energy and gets things done really quickly. But what I like about it, how many of us get spam calls multiple times a day? In fact, when the call started, or the webinar started, somebody called me, and I think it might have been a spam call. So you can put that number into Spy Dialer, and you can do a name lookup to see who's associated with the phone number. In addition to that, you can then do a voicemail search. And so what it will do is, without calling the number, it activates the phone's voicemail. So if it's a cell phone or it's a landline, it can, that has a voicemail attached to it, it can ring that. I'll use this with telemarketers all the time, and I'll actually do the call back, because sometimes you find that the person actually answers the phone, and they'll say hello. So it doesn't silent dial the phone every single time. It really depends on what kind of phone number that is. Anybody run the number and find out what name is associated with this phone number?
While you're asking that question, Scott, I just wanted to feed off of what you were saying, because even if you show the missed call and you call that number back, it literally says the number you're calling is not a working number. And buddy of mine actually is the one that created this platform. His name is Robert Scott. He's an investigator out of Southern California. I've known him since the 90s, and he's brilliant. And this is one of many things that he's created, but I love it. Hey, look at what somebody put in there. Mike wrote an answer.
Nice. Good job, Mike Stevenson. Great job. Yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide. It is actually Luke A. Good job. Mike actually took the extra time to look up what Luke A means. Yeah, Luke Air Force Base here in kind of Western Phoenix. It's the commissary number. So commissary on an Air Force base is where you get food from.
Hey, Scott.
So yeah.
I just want to mention something, because I don't want to get too far ahead of this. When we were back on AI image, one of our wonderful attendees provided a new site for all of us. So everybody go look in the chat. It's called whichfaceisreal.com. I'm going to be making sure that I check it out. And John, more than likely, I'll be sharing it in my trainings. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, Sandra. If y'all have something, you can go next slide too. if y'all have something that you use that we haven't covered, throw it in there. This is how we all learn. And by the way, when Sandra and I do this, we always learn an additional tool. I'll let you take this one, Sandra.
Okay, so now we're talking about advanced operators, otherwise known as Google dorks. Now, I want you to understand something about Google dorks. It actually is called Google hacks. The phrase was coined by a gentleman by the name of Johnny Long more than 2 decades ago. He's written a lot of books on these. I think he has 3 books or something like that. Advanced operators is what these are. Just because they're called Google hacks doesn't mean you have to use them in Google. You can use them in any search engine whatsoever, and you can also do let me open up Google for you. You can use them in any search engine. We even use them in some platforms. I'm going to give you a really quick example. The 3 ones that we have on this presentation are file type, site, and in URL. We don't have time to go over a lot of stuff, but what I am going to do is do just like I'm just going to actually, I'll do Bernie Madoff. He's more fun because he's the biggest financial fraud in the world. I mean, that guy from FTX was trying to catch up, but he didn't quite make it. If I do file type :PDF, any type of file, you just don't search exe, but any type of file you can put in here. You can do DOC or DOCX, XLS. You can do PPT, you can do JPEG, PNG, any kind of file type you want to minimize your results. So if I do a search on this fraud, any search criteria you put in the search box, and you don't have to do it the way I did it. You can put anything in there, just like you're doing your regular Google search. Then at the end, you put a space, file type :PDF. When I hit that enter button, you're going to see that everything that I get are PDF documents right there, PDF. And if it doesn't show it in there or in here, when you hover over your live link, let me move this back up. Hold on a sec. I need to make sure that you can see this. Even when I hover over the live link, look at the bottom left corner. It shows PDF, right? Every single document I get here is PDF. So the other one that we're talking about that's really important is site. And what site does, it's literally referencing a site, whether it's a website, a type of site, or a location-based site. So I could actually do something like this instead. I could do site : it'd be good if I spelled correctly. I do that a lot in my class, by the way, guys. If you want to come to any of my trainings, I don't spell well. You're going to notice that everything that I did here, I left my search criteria the same, but now I'm only looking for the results in government-based sites, GOV, GOV. Now, what I can do is use multiple operators, and I know I'm going really fast because normally in my trainings, we do this hands-on together and live. You can use multiple operators. Look at, I only have 891 results. I'm looking for my search criteria on government websites, but only in PDF documents. Government and PDF. Government and PDF. Is that not rock star? The other thing that is a lot of fun is you can always do this, site location. If you want to just focus in one specific country, right? Maybe I want to look for Bernie Madoff, but I only want to do it in India. Let's see what we get. I got, see, location-based, IN, all my results are based in that country only. How cool is that? Now, mind you, if you're looking at something and it's based in a country that speaks Spanish or German or some other language, you need to remember that you're going to want to do your searches in your language, and you're going to want to do your searches in that country's language. You can always go to Google Translate, and that's all you have to do. You can just do translate, and this comes up, and I can enter in whatever language I want, and it'll translate it. You see the drop downs, you have the options, and then go copy paste that language result into your search. So instead of whatever I might be putting in here, I might change up into that language. So I'm just giving you a little heads up. In URL, same concept. Something you're looking for in a URL. If I'm on somebody's page and I do services, I click the word services, it goes into the URL, right? So whatever you're looking for in the URL, that would be what you would do there. I wish I could stay on this more. Again, there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff out there. You can check it out, but the one site you can go to if you want to learn a little bit more, and Scott has it on the handout, exploit-db. Exploit-db is an exploit database. So you can learn a lot more off this database than just where I'm taking you right now. It's all about exploits. But if you go over here on the right-hand side, second one down, GHDB, it's the Google hacking database. So there you have it. So you can learn a lot more. So I know I whipped through that. Again, you can use these Google hacks on any search engine you want, and we even use them on some of our platforms.
That's great. Thanks, Sandra. Another good tool is these kind of information verifying ones. We won't go deep into it, but there are some links for you for that. You can go to the next slide. And I
Sure.
want to talk about this a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the biggest value of any of these satellite imagery tools, and if anybody follows the war in Europe, they're used quite often by these YouTubers to brief on what kind of they're seeing with movements of troops and things like that. So these are commercially available, a lot of these things. So using these open source tools as far as maps are concerned, really important. I used one yesterday in regards to vegetation fires near a property. So there are maps that track all kinds of things all around the world. You just have to there's 3 people in the waiting room. Can you throw them in there?
I've already done the admit all. I'm just waiting for
Awesome.
them to join. Yeah.
Thanks. So using those tools to look top down is great, but these also, a lot of these tools also have their own type of street view. So if you can identify information based on the street view, that's great too, right? And a lot of us who work in executive protection will use these tools to know which driveway we've got to pull down, or what does the front of the venue look like? Is there parking? You know, those kinds of things too. It's not just for investigations. There are tons of things that we can use street views and Google Maps for. I recommend getting Google Earth Pro on your device. It is an additional layer. Google Maps though is still one of the best out there. We can go to the next slide, Sandra.
Okay.
I know we're coming up on time, and I do want to leave time for questions. So let's go to the next one. You can do these quizzes if you want. I'm going to drop the PowerPoint in the slides, or in the chat rather. And if you do want it, hit me up on LinkedIn. I can send it to you that way as well if you can't download it from the chat. I think I can drop it in the chat. We'll find out. But I'll take a minute here. Do some searching with some of the tools. I like to recommend you start with Open Corporates. Let's take a look at this Blue Corn PPP LLC and try and answer some of these questions. Throw that in the chat. Figure out, who their principal is, where were they incorporated, did they have any other companies associated, and did you find any news stories? So when you're doing those Google dorking searches, that's good as well. There's people that are joining now, and they may have thought that it started at 9 Pacific. I apologize. Do not worry. We are recording, and we will absolutely give you a copy of the recording if you'd like. We're probably going to run over anyway. So if you want to stay, awesome. If you don't, totally understand. If you're just joining us now thinking it was starting at 9, I apologize for any kind of confusion there might be. But that's why I would imagine we get a bunch of people joining. That's okay. You can stay. Please stay. We're going to record this. We're going to give you a copy of the slides. You're going to be able to watch it. So don't sweat that. But all right. Anybody have, let's just start with where this company's incorporated. I just dropped this in. Let's see. Oh, look at that. All right. The slides are being loaded into the chat as we. Thanks, John. I know you got to jump. No worries. So if you're just joining us, you got a few people in here. We're towards the end of the presentation. There may have been some confusion with an 8 o'clock start time, not a 9 o'clock. That's okay. You are not going to be left out of the loop. We are probably going to run over a little bit anyway, so you're welcome to stay on. The presentation is being recorded, so we are going to give you access to the video recording as well as the PowerPoint. But we can go to the next slide, Sandra.
Sure.
So let's talk about Blue Corn PPP. And they are a Arizona-based corporation. They were started by a couple of fraudsters to help people file PPP loans, and they abused it. Just like, I mean, who knew if you gave billions of dollars away, somebody would commit fraud? Amazing. That never happens. But you could use some of the tools that we talked about earlier, like open corporates, going to the Secretary of State websites to identify who the two principals are. I think they're still under investigation, or they've yeah, I think they're still under investigation. But anyways, there are open source news articles about this company. I think the company's still in business, by the way. They are still trying to help people with filing PPP loans. If you aren't familiar with a PPP loan, it's a program from the U.S. government to provide money for pandemic relief. If you had a business or you were working and you were laid off because of the pandemic, you could apply for funds through PPP. What we've found, I think, I've spoken on this a couple of times since the pandemic started, and some of my co-presenters and myself think that there's probably at least 25% of the PPP loans that had some indicators of fraud. So that this is why we do these open source searches. So if you were going to work with Blue Corner, you were going to bring in this company to do work for your business, you might want to know that they've been involved in some type of fraudulent activity in the past. Maybe it's not something where the whole company goes to jail, but it is an indicator of what kind of businesses they are, what kind of work that they do. So that's the importance of doing these types of searches, and understanding who you're dealing with and what you've got going on. So with that,
Hey, Scott, I think a lot of people thought it was starting at noon. So I've typed in the chat about the fact that we did start at 11 Eastern, or no, yeah, it was 11 Eastern, right? And 8 Pacific. And what I'm just going to reiterate that right now we're recording this, and the slide deck is in the chat. So you don't have to worry. You're going to be able to get the recording. Scott, are you going to not only put it in ASIS Connects, but you're also going to put the recording in LinkedIn, or are you going to post it anywhere else?
if you're cool with it, I can do that.
Yeah, you can post it anywhere you want. So we're going to make sure it's out there. Again, sorry for the confusion, but yeah, what's really nice is Scott has already posted the slide deck in this chat. So you can go ahead and download it. I think a few people said they were already able to download it. But again, we're going to make sure the recording is out there as well. So for those of you that thought it was starting at noon Eastern time, don't worry, you've got the recording. It's going to be out there.
Yep, we're happy to hang on a little bit longer because I know we got started a little bit later. Any questions from anybody in the audience? Feel free to unmute yourself. If you can't unmute, just type in the chat. Sandra and I can. You can go to the next slide, Sandra. Sandra and I can.
I have a. Oh, my question can wait until the end.
Yep, we're good. We're at questions. Go for it.
All right. So we talked a lot about OSINT. Not that I'm complaining, but this was a workshop on corporate due diligence investigations. My question is, how do we market our services to corporations?
Yeah, that's a whole other webinar.
That is a whole other webinar.
I like the approach of finding a friend. There are a number of business associations that you can join, and I recommend you do that. that you start talking, putting yourself in a position to be in the same place as business owners and decision makers, right? Like, it's great that Sandra and I deal with a lot of folks in the security industry at these big conferences where we can talk with people who are actually making decisions about how to spend money. The best thing that I would recommend is start small and start with businesses that if they had a fraud problem like this, it would actually crush their business, and figure out how to do things for them at a cost that they can afford. But my sense is that a lot of business owners, especially small businesses, which are the majority of businesses in the world, they probably don't even know about half of these things. And I talk with business owners quite often, and they really don't have any clue who they're doing business with. So that's kind of where I would start. I don't know, Sandra, or if anybody else has any other recommendations. How do you get started with corporations?
Well, I'm coming from a whole different world than you, because I'm not within corporations, but as a consultant and as a private investigator in my own industry, I work only on referral as it goes. So basically, the things that have brought me clients and really built my business, and for the referrals that I have, I'm going to tell you right now, volunteering in my world has been dramatic, and putting yourself at events where you can network face to face, right? So that's everything in my world. Those are the things that have done great things for me when I'm face to face with anybody. And then I present, which is also volunteering a lot of times. I also, do paid ones, but yeah, those are the ways that I get it. But like I said, it's very different in your world than mine.
Yeah, and for on the private side, even in corporations, your fellow cross-functional leaders will only connect with you and share information if they know, like, and trust you. So I think it's the same thing in the private sector, or if you're running your own business. If somebody doesn't know, like, and trust you, are they going to share information with you? Or are they going to request your assistance? Those are things to consider as you're building your business.
Hey, on a side note, I'm not going to say it right. Yehuda provided a resource, which I know about these resources, Trace Labs, and also Kali. I highly recommend Kali. It has a lot of OSINT tools in it. It's a Linux platform, but thank you for providing both of those. So you guys might want to take note of that in the chat. And before we end up finishing up, Scott, let's reiterate about the recording, because a lot of people did come in. So
yeah, and I apologize, and I see a lot of people joining right now. There might have been some confusion on the start times. We did start an hour ago. That's okay, because we've recorded it, and we have the PowerPoint that we've dropped in the chat that we will put together on a post on LinkedIn, as well as in ASIS Connects for the investigations community. If you are an ASIS member, by the way, the slide that you're seeing on the screen is the sessions that Sandra and I are going to be talking at next week at GSX in Dallas, Texas. We both have a pretty packed schedule, but if you're going to be there, we hope to see you there. And feel free to hurl tomatoes or ask us tough questions.
I do not acknowledge the tomato thing. I'm sorry. I don't want to get messy stuff in my hair. So no, if you don't like it, just say bye. You're so bad, Scott.
I have not been to one of Sandra's sessions and not actually learned a ton. So she's got one of the best sessions out there.
So do you. You're amazing.
We're going to be pretty dynamic. Sabotage and critical infrastructure should be really fun. We're going to be talking about that on September 11th. We're going to get really nerdy. There's a panel of experts that are on that. I am not one of the experts, but we have. I was asked because it's a multi-community kind of panel. So there are folks who are from the critical infrastructure community at ASIS, as well as physical security, I think, and I might be getting that wrong, but I'll be representing the investigations community to talk about the very small piece of sabotaging critical infrastructure that involves investigations. So, and then we're going to
tell them about mine.
What's that?
I was going to tell them about mine as well, so they know what to expect in my session. My session is, excuse me, my session is Become Stealth Online and anonymizing your digital footprint to basically, for online security. And what I'm going to be doing is giving you some tips and tricks and tools to keep your identity safe, secure, no digital footprint, protect your identity, protect your computer, protect your network, protect your company's information. Do not leave a trail, and be able to utilize these tools to always be secure and safe. And then from there, that's part of my big presentations and trainings. And then from there, you can go searching without worrying about putting yourself out there. So make sure you come. It's Monday, 11:15. So it's first day. And then Scott, what days are yours?
Monday and Tuesday, I think both are afternoon. Yeah, on the screen, I got Monday, September 11th from 2 to 3, local time in Dallas, and then on Wednesday from 3:15 to 4:15. By the way, I'm not sure if these will be on the virtual sessions. I know there is a way to virtually attend GSX. I'm not sure. They don't always tell us until like we're there if we're going to be like on camera, but hopefully that we will. And because the second session that I'm in, what will corporate security look like in 2033? If you know Carlos Francisco, I know Sandra, you do. But if you're not familiar with Carlos, he's the corporate security translator. So he and I are going to get on there and do a song and dance and, do what we do. And we're going to have fun. It may involve alcohol. I don't know. It depends on what we can get snuck into don't tell anybody I said that. It's a secret between all 87 of us. But yeah, we're gonna have a great time. The whole GSX is going to be a lot of fun, and it's a great place to get together with corporate security leaders and vendors, by the way, too. We can't do ASIS International or GSX without our vendor partners. So that's really important. Any other questions about, and I'm looking through the chat as I'm talking, any other questions about using open source intelligence to do corporate due diligence? Or I know there's some talk about, or there's some questions about Scope now. I highly recommend you go by their booth. They have from what I've seen, a couple of different billing options. One of the billing options is a pay per poll, meaning you sign up and you have to qualify to be able to use their database. By the way, they don't just give it, I think, to anybody. And Sandra, correct me if I'm wrong there. They have a couple of different billing cycles, and one of them is that pay per poll, meaning that once you run the data, then you pay for it. Once you've run it, so you have to have a credit card.
I believe they do have that option, but I'm not sure if they're still offering it. So you're going to want to ask them when you go see them.
Yeah, definitely talk to them about that, because the information that they've got can be pretty pricey. So, but I think it's a value if you're in corporate investigations like I am. I think it's a really good tool. By the way, if you doing due diligence in Canada is really tough. They've got a lot of privacy laws, just like it is in Europe, by the way. And believe it or not, Scope now returns some results. So whereas TLO or some of the other paid databases will not return results, some of the other paid databases, I should say, do not return results for folks in Canada because they just aren't set up for that. A lot of the things.
Scope Now's algorithm is extraordinary. It is completely international. If you have a target that's based in India, for example, you have their phone number, maybe their email address, their name, you can put that in there. You can do all international, and it will return everything for that person, even if they're in India or Hong Kong or London. It doesn't matter. It's a completely international platform.
So what other things do you have going on in the very near future, Sandra? Maybe in October, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah. For those of you that are interested, those of you that are a part of ASIS, you all know Chuck Andrews. He is a very good friend of mine, and he has Friends of Chuck. And Chuck always puts on really great Friends of Chuck events, such as Texas Night, that is going to be Sunday night before the GSX. So make sure you register for that if you haven't. On the other hand, Chuck and I have our own event going on. He is hosting He is actually presenting and hosting my one-day OSINT training on October 19th from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at Pioneer Natural Resources, which is one of the biggest oil and gas companies out there, just outside of Dallas in Irving. They have an amazing university campus, believe it or not, there. So it's going to be really exciting. And there are so many additional things that you're going to get out of it if you register for my training. He's going to, first of all, give you a signed book of his, which is a really cool book. Breakfast, lunch, and snacks, of course, are included, but then there's going to be an incredible exclusive private networking event hosted by TAMC or sponsored by TAMC right after the training. And then as a bonus, the next night, there's a law enforcement appreciation night for Texas law enforcement, and you are going to be included as long as you RSVP in your registration. So this is huge. You are getting way more for your money than you normally would, and this is going to be the one of many that Chuck and I are going to be doing moving forward. We're going to have lots of 1-dayers and 2-dayers. So please reach out, go to my website, opensourceintelligencetraining.org. You'll see that on the front. And then if you go to upcoming events page, you'll see it there and everything else I have coming up. So I'm looking forward to seeing any of you there, or just come by and see me on Monday and at my session, and we can talk more about it then. So thanks, Scott.
Yeah. That's great. And I just put in the chat Sandra and I's contact info on LinkedIn. So let us know if you need anything that way as well. If you just joined, I apologize. There's some confusion about start times, but do not worry. We are recording this and we are going to make that available on LinkedIn as well as on ASIS Connects, the investigations community. And I'll just pause here for a brief moment. Anybody else have any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself too and ask. We're not formal here.
We never have been, have we, Scott?
Yeah.
It's one of the things about us. Scott and I will just take off. We don't even, when we're doing our presentations together, we don't even really plan. We just kind of are able to talk with each other and feed off each other. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have so much fun.
Yeah, and if you haven't been to Sandra's training, it's very similar. Tons of tools, tons of quizzes and drills. The things that we do are very similar to what we've done here. So when we do in-person training, it's very similar. Hopefully, it's a lot of fun. Hopefully, you've learned a ton. If there isn't anything else, I'll let everybody get back their day. Again, I apologize if there was some confusion about the timing, but don't worry, we recorded it and we're going to put it out for everybody.
Okay.
Last word, Sam.
Yeah, well, there's one person that just joined, so I'll just reiterate so they know. We started actually at 11 Eastern and not noon. I guess there was confusion about it. This is going to be recorded. It was recorded, and so you can still get the recording. We're going to post it everywhere, ASIS Connects, LinkedIn. And in the meantime, we're hoping, please come say hi to me and Scott at our sessions, or just come and find us. We network all over the floor at GSX. We're always out there, and we'd love to say hi. So please come introduce yourself and reach out to us if you need anything else. And we're happy to, you already put us in the our LinkedIn information in there so everybody can connect if they're not already. So just look for our recording of this and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.